Oh, this is very nice. So with that, I guess we'll get the recording is on. It is. I guess we'll get the business. The minutes of the July 26th meeting are available. I ask if you review them and get a motion to approve them. Motion to approve. Second? Second. All in favor? Is anyone opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 3 is the President's CEO report. Mike?
Good morning. Thank you all. I hope everyone's had a great summer. I always have felt that the day after Labor Day is the first day of it's New Year's Eve in the business world because we all spend so much time going back to school in labor. And so it's to me a more important day to refocus and move forward than even New Year, in January after the New Year's comes. We've been seemingly busy here. Martha has some loan activity to report. Jessica Gabriel is going to go through a preliminary presentation on our strategic plan. Lisa and Kat have been busy on administrative and financial reporting matters and keeping us in good stead. We continue to be very busy with the Columbia County and City of Hudson IDAs. We do have at the county IDA, we recently closed, as some of you know, on the Clock Distillery out in Iverick. Their financing, they financed that with farm credit. We are working on a project with Redburn, the developer of the Wick Hotel, also many other projects throughout the capital region on a 150-unit apartment house in Greenport. I think I had reported that was somewhat stalled, but it appears to be back on track. With the City of Hudson IDA, we recently closed on CEDC 7, which is the former town and country market. If you've been down there, they have are beginning to build an addition that will double the size of the existing building. They've gutted the original building and are working to build a food processing facility and refrigerated storage facility that can be anticipated to be used by third parties. Their main business is moving from New Jersey to Columbia County, and the purpose is to produce prepared meals that will be sold in boxes of 10 in the greater New York City area after they've been cooked and flash frozen. It's a $7 million project. Our contract with the City of Hudson IDA, you'll recall some years ago, the state had suggested, since they hadn't done a deal in several years, that they be dissolved. We convinced them to keep their franchise because once you lost it, you'd never get back. They went from having $10,000 in cash in the bank to having a little over 300 at this point, based on the projects that we've helped them close over that time period. There are several projects in the pipeline. I think you're all aware of the CEDC 7 project, the Parker Book Factory, the 620 Union Street Hotel, which has 2 years to before their IDA benefits expire. So they are, while they're not haven't started construction, they're still moving forward. Galvin has two affordable housing projects, one affordable and one low income approved. They're waiting for their state funding to be able to move forward with those projects. And we've been working with Ben Fain, who purchased the CAS site from the Hudson Development Corporation in connection with possible options that he's exploring with respect to development at the waterfront. Our contract with them provides for a $10,000 a year administrative fee, which is just a way of getting them back on their feet. But we do have a provision that we get 10% of any IDA fee that they receive up to $10,000. So I understand that the CEDC 7 financing will close the week of September 12th. And so we'll get a $7,500 kicker from that deal, to the extent that the two Galvin projects closed, we would get a $10,000 fee on top of for each of those projects. So, you know, I think that it's fairly priced because we're basically taking the developer's risk. If the developer gets approved and closes on the financing, then you know, we are compensated based on the additional work that's involved in working to close those deals. With the county IDA, they pay us $24,000 a year, and as a result, we get a kicker if there's more than $150,000 of fees, so that basically they're prepaying for some of the administrative costs relating to one or two projects that are done under the base contract. Moving towards Columbia Forward, our contract with the county was signed several months ago. We received our first check. They did pay us for the first half of 2022, so it's $150,000 a year. So we received $75,000. We took $10,000. Our deal with the chamber is we get $20,000 for programmatic expenses related to the initiative, and then we split $62,500 a year with the chamber. So we each have the ability to have a full-time dedicated staff person. So what you'll see when we look at the financials is there's 42.5 in the income, and I'm working with the accountants to see how we can put that in a deferral and draw on it, so that, you know, as you have grants that are dedicated funding, you don't want to commingle those funds and think that you know, we have a $30,000 positive bottom line, because those funds are allocated to expenses that are designated. And that's come up before. We received a grant from Hudson River Bank and Trust Foundation in connection with a project in Stuyvesant. We had to report the income last year of $15,000. The way the grant was written made us look good at year end, but we had to pay out $15,000 this year. And when you look at our expenses, we're modestly over budget. So when we get to the financial report, I think that you'll see we're in great shape. Jessica can give a brief update on her activities with Columbia Forward. We've been out meeting with town supervisors. We've been continuing our meetings with the chamber to get the program defined and underway. There'll be some events and activities that you'll be seeing marketed soon. We've had great response from the supervisors that we've met with already. We've been working with Copay, the village of Kinderhook, and New Lebanon, all who have applied for a New York Forward grant, which are what I call mini downtown revitalization grants. They're up to $2.5 million. The DRI grants are at $10 million. And I think the state realized over time that there are smaller communities that they don't have the capacity to use 10 million, but they could benefit greatly from a smaller amount. We do have, I think, 28 consolidated funding applications that were filed on July 29th. We worked on many of them, including providing letters of support. They're from not-for-profits, several for-profits, not as many as I would have liked, but for-profit developers don't really want to wait for the process and risk not getting the money or having to go through the requirements of getting state grants. And there's also a lot of infrastructure, water and sewer projects. And so we continue to become a resource and a hub. On broadband, Dave and I have been working with our consultants to further refine the data. We did have the consultants take our list of 1,257 addresses, put it into the PSC's online tool where you can put your address in and see what broadband service is available. Unfortunately, there was a 73% disparity between our data and theirs. We've had contact with both the New York Connects office and the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission is doing the data and mapping. And we have provided them with initial information. They then rearranged for the county to sign a confidentiality agreement so they would share all of their data with us. We've taken that and we have had the consultant put a red dot where they say their service or is in service, and an orange dot where we say, and then a red dot with an orange circle around it where we agree. And we've sent that information to them, and they've asked that we meet with them on September 12th. So the goal here is to make sure it doesn't matter who's right and who's wrong. We just want to have the right list so that when the funding becomes available, we're not debating where the need is. We have continued to work with the 4 providers, GTEL, Mid-Hudson, Spectrum Charter, and Consolidated. They've all been cooperative in reviewing the PSC list to vet it as well. And I think the PSC data comes from mapping that may be dated, and it's a moving target because every month those 4 providers do 5 to 10 new connects, and we're working our way down through that. We're also working with the towns of New Lebanon and Canaan. They were 2 of the 4 towns that were involved in the grant from Representative Delgado with respect to congressionally directed member items. Each member of Congress got $10 million last year. That's about $850,000 grant money. The towns of Ghent and Austerlitz were also part of that grant, but right now it's uncertain as to how the money will flow through the USDA and what the application requirements and permitting and environmental review requirements will be. So they've decided by passing local laws at their town board level to move forward and use ARPA money to complete the addresses in their communities that are unserved. All in those Delgado addresses are about 341 addresses, which will bring our list down from 1257 to almost 950. So I think any opportunity to get addresses done with any funding available, whether it be local ARPA money, the congressional designated funds, or the money yet to come is important. We're waiting for the state to appoint a new broadband director. We have been in touch with the 3 people who or staff, father, 3 daughters, I'm getting caught, who staff the New York broadband office. They're like people in waiting, but they're very engaged and with us and cooperative. We understand it's going to be the former deputy chief information officer for the city of New York. So one of the concerns we do have is coming from that type of position. The state does have a portion of their plan is to promote municipal broadband franchises. But in a county like this, where we have pockets within 4 separate providers, private sector providers, and we don't have, other than perhaps highway department employees, I don't think any of the 18 towns have a full-time employee. So they're not going to be able to administer and manage their own broadband system. So we are a little concerned about how the money will flow, but we are assured that there will be last mile private provider dollars as part of the grant.
Mike, I should probably know this, but is there a number that kicks around that, like, realistically, I can't imagine we're going to get to 0. It would be something greater than 0, that places you're just never going to get it to. Is there a number?
It's about 400 homes.
So 400 is effective. 400 homes would be effectively, we've got everybody we're going to
And
get.
part of that is because the state's current rule is that the private sector provider only has to bring the connection 300 feet off the road. And we did go and have our GIS people identify how many buildings are more than 300 feet off the road. My understanding, though, is the two providers involved, Mid-Hudson and Consolidated, with respect to the Delgado money, agreed to go to the home, regardless of what the distance is. But they priced that into the mix. We think it's $8 to $12 million to get what you might consider full coverage in the state, in the county. But you know, there's $50 billion coming. Finally, you'll recall in March we did with Pattern for Progress, a housing study, and we did a online virtual forum, and that forum ended up being about 180 people participate, and that was commissioned on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. Board of Supervisors, Economic Development Committee and Finance Committee have both approved resolutions recommending to the full board at their meeting on September 9th that, subject to this board's approval today, that CEDC be retained under a separate contract that to be serve as the county's affordable housing coordinator. It would be $250,000 over 3 years, and it would require that we hire someone to fulfill that role, and also as part of their responsibilities, coordinate a new affordable housing countywide task force. The city of Hudson is an integral part of that, but they have set up. They did a similar study, and they have their own housing task force and housing director. And we would be working closely with her and with the city officials. But I think the supervisor's primary focus here is how do you know, it's one thing to work on affordable housing. I mean, it's one focus to work on affordable housing in a community of 7,500 people where the median household income is $35,000 in a 4 square mile area. But it's quite different to work in 18 towns where infrastructure is lacking in many of them, where there are community standards of scale and fitting into the character of the community. And so I think that we will learn a lot and have learned a lot from the city's coordinator and her activities, and we are going to partner with her. But I think part of the focus here is how do we find affordable housing for families who are making the median income in Columbia County, which is $68,000. And you know, I did a quick analysis that if you have household income of 100 grand, you know, a $55,000 salary and a $65,000 salary, or even two $50,000 salaries, you can only afford a $175,000 home. Well, while still using 30% of your gross income on housing. There are no $175,000 homes available other than properties that are being bought up by speculators who are improving them and flipping them or turning them into Airbnbs. You know, again, you know, it's a focus on in rural communities with no water, sewer, gas service. You're looking at building 2, 4, and 6 unit projects on if you're going to do rental units on septic. So you know it is a challenge, and at the same time, the statistics show, as I think I said before, there's approximately 2,000 businesses in the county. 75% of those are under 10 employees, but more importantly, that half of them, 1,000 of the 2,000, and these are private sector jobs, excluding healthcare, government, and education, are classified as service jobs. You know, from lawyers and accountants and insurance firms to landscapers, hairdressers, and barbers. When you look at that, and hospitality, and when you look at that service sector, you know, it's very hard to imagine knowing the median income in the county and the salaries that are reported, to imagine where people are going to live to in the county. And if you start looking outside the county, there's not, everyone's in the immediate vicinity in the regions experiencing similar housing prices. So, I would like to recommend that the board approve CEDC entering into a contract with the county. My one concern is that we do have a base contract of $460,000. We have the $50,000 county grant for providing grants to the next $500,000 of loan clients at 10%. We do have a $450,000 contract in partnership with the chamber over the next 3 years, and this is another $250,000. We worked hard over the last 7 years to get our percentage of county funding down to close to 55%. And I think we want to be sure that this doesn't put us back up to where even when you divide out over a 3-year period this revenue, that we get back up to what is perceived as a 65 or 75 or even 80% of funding from county government. Fortunately, the work that Martha's doing with the loan fund and the ever increasing grants we receive from the SBA, will result in over almost $400,000 from SBA funding. And in addition, Jessica and I have been looking at kicking off in the next 2 to 3 weeks a more robust CEDC membership campaign. I think 7 years ago we were bringing in 2,000 or 3,000. We got up to 60,000 between membership and sponsorships for events. With COVID, we kind of backed off. We didn't feel if people had extra money, they were giving it to social service or organizations or just keeping their own businesses going. But I think it's possible to get to 60 to 75,000 this year and continue to build that. We did ask Mayor Rector to meet with us from his experience in marketing, and we're also looking at having some assistance from some third-party marketing firm, so that I think Rick mentioned that I've been on this board for 3 months now, and I didn't know you did all these things. So how do we tell our message in a way that's meaningful to businesses, with balancing the fact that if you're paying taxes as a business and you're seeing we're getting $700,000 a year from the county, did we already pay at the office? And so I think it's a delicate balance, but I do think we can tell our story better.
So you're looking for a motion to enter a contract with the county?
Right, a 3-year contract, not to exceed $250,000 to get assurances. We both can cancel in 60 days. It's 1 year renewable, but it's not. It's 1 year reviewed. It doesn't. But I think we want to be sure that it's working, and we don't want to take their money if it's not working. And I think the only danger there is when you hire someone for a grant program. How do you position yourself that when the grant is up or if it ends early, you aren't in a position of creating a situation of unemployment liability or disruption of someone's income and quality of life.
Mike, will the CEDC be absorbing Bill Fisher's position?
No, Bill's position is he's the county's fair housing coordinator.
But all housing matters, according to what I've read about, all housing matters in the county goes to his office.
Right. This is where they're hiring us under service contract to provide them with policy, plan, and assistance in implementing affordable housing. So it's really, we're acting as a consultant to the county. And he gets involved in those projects that are either federally or state funded. And I don't see where many of the projects that we're looking at are going to be eligible for that kind of thing. But I can double check with the county attorney so that it's clear what the.
I'll reread exactly what his position entails, but all the county matters regarding housing goes to his office.
I think what we should do is, we'll discuss that with, Chairman Morrell and with, Rob Fitzsimmons, most importantly, that he doesn't feel somehow we're encroaching on his, area of responsibility, and that we have a clear dialogue and link. So I appreciate, we've always had difficulty finding out exactly, we've dealt with Bill on a few times where he had to sign some certifications for us. But he's also the Section 3 officer, is that what? Yeah. So, but thank you for pointing that out.
Any more discussion? Can I get a motion to enter into the, with the county and contract for housing?
So move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Is everyone opposed? Motion is carried. Thanks, Mike.
Very quickly looking at the financial report, towards the back, and the budget is first, and the budget versus actual. And as you can see, we have $549,000 of income where we budgeted 49, so we have $59,000 in income. You'll see 42.5 of that is the money I mentioned from the county, and then 13,000 is from the micro loan program, and we're a little bit above budget on loan interest income and on other income. On the expense side, we're $6,500 over on expenses, and those continue to be the categories where we had the added office expense, the added accounting fees for the single audit, and our new initiatives. So there's nothing new in those categories. Are there any questions on the no? If not, on the balance sheet, this is the first time our assets and liabilities have exceeded $4 million. And we're at $4,073,000. Our total equity is 2.7 million. That's primarily the ongoing growth and strength of the loan fund and the additional funding that we're planning to draw down from the SBA. We'll put that higher. Are there any questions on the balance sheet?
No, that's awesome. Thank you for
And finally, I guess, Martha, we should get a resolution approved to draw down the additional $200,000 from the SBA. They had approved 400,000, which you had approved, but we are at a point where the aggregate of funds available to lend in the SBA portfolio is at a point where if we draw it down and get the money on the street, we'll be well positioned to apply for more next year.
so moving. Now. So we have a motion to approve. Yeah. So moved. Second. Motion second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you.
I don't have anything else to report today. If there's any questions, we have to answer them now or after the meeting. Well, I think so that we don't run out of time in an effort to do your two committees, Mr. Chairman. I'd recommend that we move that to after the loan committee and have the governance committee report.
To approve the budget.
So move.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thanks for reminding me. Executive committee did not meet. Audit and finance, did not meet. Might be the treasurer's report. Governance and nominating, I'll hand that over to Sarah.
Okay, try to review, we're going to committees with that. We're still not, we're just moving slowly on that one.
Yeah, Andy and I did speak about it. Basically, I think you're aware that all of the charters have become compilations of amendments, and so they don't read the same, and there's different inconsistencies between the verbiage, and we're going to conform that by reviewing what the current charters say, what the ABO's recommended charters are, and what good governance entails. And Andy's going to have one of his associates undertake that project for us, pull together all of that information so they don't have to go look for it. And I think there's 5 charters, and we just want to, Sarah had pointed out some inconsistencies. Yeah.
So that's moving along. Committee appointments, Rachel Dean is now on loan committee. And if anyone else would like to change committees or anything, suggestions, let me know. Then we've actually interviewed 2 board candidates, which will make our table very full. Prove these people.
I'm gonna move forward.
Move to a bigger place. Anyhow, the first one is Anand Balazar. He has was working for Messwood. Now he's with Latory Insurance Agency. He's spent a long time with as a volunteer rescue squad. He's a paramedic and operations director with Valencia Volunteer Rescue Squad right now, and he's been doing that for many, many years. So that would bring some interesting information to us as getting fire people in the county is so difficult. And should we do one at a time, or?
I don't know. We have 2. You want to vote on them one at a time together? Or at a time? Sure.
Did you get his resume or not? Sure. No. Sorry. My bad on that.
Well, it's in here. It's at the back.
Oh, okay. Let me get that. My, the other one does not have this.
Well, I was recommended to me by Michael from the Buttons. He's very nice.
Some of us know him. Any questions back? Motion to approve.
I'll make the motion. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, I think that was a great addition.
So this candidate needs no resume. I'm sure you know.
Well, okay, the other candidate is Mike Johnson. He's Johnson Bus Company. He's in buses all over the county. He's a 5th generation Columbia County that's resident family. He's 4th generation in business here. He has a thriving 35 years in the school bus business, hires 92 people. He never stops. He just takes on whatever he sees out there, because he's working on it. Many hats. I think he would bring a good another viewpoint to us about workforce and just his experience in the county, knowing how it works.
I would make an enthusiastic motion to approve.
Okay, all in favor?
Good deal.
Never
I
had
got
time to write a resume.
I know.
Yeah, I think he's pretty amazing. Okay, so those are our 2 new people. And that's all for me.
Thank you very much. Loan committee. He's chairs that. He's not here, but he goes to Mark. Buffalo.
Take a look at the portfolio. For the state in 2022, 3 plans on here for the years, and actually the first one is a little better. one adult, mother, brewery, they got 2 loans with us, and so that they are in 2 spots. We're working with them and have provided. Page 3, we show a Lula again, they're paid up. And finally, CEO Junk is 2 months in arrears, and we're going to ask for approval to move that loan from the SBA loan fund to the CEDC loan fund.
Yes, it's already.
Yes.
Any discussion? Motion to approve moving, what was it again?
Oh, Junk.
Need anything picked up that your refuge company doesn't.
Oh, it's on from the SBA, or liability with the SBA, it's our own loan. So I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you.
And we all-
know that. Okay. And you'll vote?
I do.
Yep.
But Mark, did you need the whole report?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that there. Favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. That's twice.
Sorry.
One more time, I'm sorry.
First half hour of the day.
You're only at 90%, 65 is past him.
They are relocating their winery from the San Francisco area to Germantown. They purchased a home on it in Germantown last year. And they've been spending the past year investing in both the home, the orchard, and the barn. Relocating a winery is a fairly complicated process. They've been working with an attorney who specializes in New York State farm brewery licenses. They have formed an LLC that owns the California LLC, and once they have liquidated their inventory from California, then they can liquidate that LLC. This year, they're going to start by purchasing grapes from a grower over in the Finger Lakes area. They also have a contract with another processor who is going to crush and bottle the grapes. That wine will not be ready for sale right away, so their income this year will come from selling the cases of wine that they are having shipped out from California, and that should generate over $100,000 in income. They're a very scrappy couple of individuals. They bring an awful lot of skills and experience to this project. Emma was a partner in a restaurant that did just under $5 million in sales out in San Francisco. She closed it during the pandemic. Her husband is working 2 jobs currently, one as a landscaper and one as a remodeler. Emma's stepfather has employed them to do some high-end remodeling projects. So if you took a look at their projections, I think they're very conservative. They also hope to be making hard cider, but they didn't count any income coming from that because it's a new process for them. They've never made hard cider before. And have 2 young children. They're living here full time. I think they're going to be a wonderful addition to the county. We're proposing a $50,000 working capital loan, 72 months on the PA portion, which is $20,000, and 120 months on the CEDC portion to really help them get a leg up. And the collateral is a second mortgage on the property as well as a personal guarantee.
Thank you.
Did the loan committee discuss how high the leverage this year is?
Discuss the fact that this is pure and simple character loan. They're really coming and that the skills and experience are what's going to make this project.
And what were their credit scores?
In July, I think she's ready to go back to work after Labor Day, and she's going to be the one selling the wine in California.
And the aggregate payments are under $1,000.
Oh, to us, correct.
Yeah. So, our thought is that, they have been successful in their previous activities. They're, have experience in the field, and it's basically the types of loans that a bank wouldn't make at this point. And, our feeling is that to the extent that they do have a default. They have the capacity to pay that over a period of time to make us whole. And we do have a mortgage, a second mortgage on a property that has equity in it. And, you know, we recommend it to the board. And the committee has approved.
Any more discussion?
You probably had a question.
It's interesting.
So in the loan committee, we also discussed the reason why they're moving from California is because of environmental changes, fires and all that stuff. They just wanted to get away from all that.
Come here for snow and floods.
Yeah.
They bought a farm here for what it costs to rent a farm.
Yeah, it's a different market.
Combining the grapes for Finger Lakes, they're doing a produce, someone's going to be pressing the grapes from the county or in the county.
Oh.
So there are two other businesses that they're paying that are outside of the county.
And how are they selling them? So they're currently licensed to distribute in New York State through their California license. And they will apply, in fact, I think they've already applied for the new federal license, for the new LLC. And once they receive that, they can apply for farm brewer. But again, they're getting very good advice on that. New York.
How much wine did we get?
I'm sorry.
How much wine did we get?
Where's my case coming?
He could, but it would be wrong.
Any more discussion?
Anniversary of water.
Can I get a motion? Approve? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Workforce and Education Committee is still kind of in limbo and there was no meeting. However, Dr. Gold is doing.
Yeah, good news.
Yeah, we received $1 million from Assemblymember Keith Barrett in order to extend our construction technology historic preservation carpentry program. Really, really excited for it. Great need in both Greene and Columbia counties, store buildings. Right now, our program is capped at 16 students because of the footprint of the building. So our hope is that we will be extending the building. That the $1 million is going to go pretty quickly. Yeah, it's been full since the program started in 2019. It's been full every
Oh, that's awesome.
which is great. So I think what we're looking to do as well is we're going to be adding what we call micro credentials in HVAC, plumbing, and electrical wiring. So those will be able to be tacked onto the certificate program, and our students will have an extra skill set when they go out to get a job. So very, very exciting. And came as a complete, total surprise, which is always a wonderful way to start the academic year. It certainly is. We also are getting $5,000 from SUNY, and that's going to be pumped into our automotive technology program in order to move from gas-powered vehicles to hybrid and electric. So we'll be doing training in those areas. Yeah. Exciting things. Thank you.
And you were honored to have the Speaker of the New York State Assembly come to announce it.
That's right, Colin. With Keith Barrett.
On,
He's never been on campus before, so that's quite a treat.
on his way to the state fair.
Think about the fact that we have no cell service in parts of the building. Thank you for being,
Oh, no, we were glad to be there, Ron. Thank you for inviting.
So that's here. Of course.
Well, as you know, we started this process pre-COVID and then realized that you can't do a strategic plan without being in person. The virtual plan was not an easy process. And so when Jessica joined us, I asked her to review where we were as part of an effort to go through a onboarding and orientation process, and then give us her perspective of where we are and to lead us into a discussion. And I think I said before, it's critical that we are board driven and not staff driven, because I find when it's staff driven, boards abdicate because they feel that it's all being taken care of. And I think it's important, particularly recognizing that we are serving the county and we seem to be getting asked to do more and more, but that may not be exactly what the board thinks is the total picture. So we want to be sure we're balancing the activities that we're undertaking. Jessica, do you want to go through your program?
Sure, I'll go quickly.
Are we able to put it? Well, I guess I have copies, so that's fine.
Is there copies in the?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, it's just, I really want to come up like this saying, there's many reasons to, go through a strategic planning process and to update your. Yeah. Come here, so I'll have another here. Just four chair. So we're sitting, I was trying to figure out, is there a way that you figure this table to get more seats earlier? Thank you. So I would say there's many reasons that the board, it appears, have gone through. There's been some new members to the board, members to staff. So this is a good opportunity to go through and start to kind of realign the vision with the work that's happening. So it's a good time to do that. And also, we want to recognize that there's, the current realities environment, whether we're post-pandemic, I don't know if that's true or not, but post-pandemic, and we want to make sure that our work is aligned with sort of the current realities. So we put this document together to really just to sort of brief you and prepare you for more of an in-depth conversation to discuss updating the plan. So briefly go through and walk through. So weird not to have it up. Do you want, if it's better, it's in color. I think yours are all black and white. If you go to see them on the bottom, there's a PowerPoint. It's
going to share screen. PowerPoint. Yeah.
You can share it. And then if you go to the PowerPoint, that one. If you go up to the top. That makes it more complex. Feeling all sorts. I've never really presented where. Perfect. Thank you. You go down to the next. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so we'll walk through it. So I'll go through this pretty quickly, being aware of time, and really, this is just to give the briefing, right, and have a more detailed conversation. So I'll walk through the existing plan, talk about accomplishments that the organization has made, go through some data and statistics, and then some consideration things to think about. And really, I think the intent here is to talk about what the next steps are. Some things I want we all should consider as we go through this refreshing process are looking at the current pillars and the respective objectives. Are they still relevant? Are they compelling? Do we serve, are they relevant to everyone we serve? We also want to think about, are there areas that CED should continue to expand, thinking about the priorities, the Columbia Forward initiative, the new housing coordinator, the housing crisis that's going on. Is that really addressed in our strategic plan, or how do we amend the plan to include those activities? The last is really, are we following the SMART principles, which the goals and objectives should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. So says strategic planning experts. So we want to just be mindful of those as we
coming soon to theater for you.
Yes. So just quickly, I know I'm going to go through this very quick. The next few slides. So strategic planning, your 2019 strategic plan has 4 pillars. They really, what we want to do is focus on, I think when we think about a refresh, we want to focus on really the objectives and the underlying tactics that are achieving the objectives. Those are the things we want to think about refreshing. So the first one, entrepreneurship and innovation, just gonna go through quickly some of the accomplishments. 32 small business owners have completed the CEDC's micro business seminar series. Huge, provided more than 75 small business and SBI micro loans totaling almost $2 million. That's really impressive for really a 1 to 2% operation, Martha. And then also thinking about continuing support to pandemic recovery through, what you've done with the rapid recovery, the fast forward, and now the Columbia Forward loan. So they're the things that we want to think about and consider during this refresh. As well as there's an increase in state and federal funding. How can we make sure we're positioned to expand our assistance to businesses so that they can take advantage of that funding? Infrastructure, this is really, major accomplishments related to CED serving as the county's broadband coordinator, commissioning the broadband study, all the things that Mike had been just talking about during his report. The housing report and also the housing forum you completed. And then some things to think about, I think challenges related to the infrastructure are the broadband funding and who is championing that going forward. And then the new county housing coordinator, how do these changes impact our strategy? Or flip that thought to, do our objectives sufficiently address the new role of the housing coordinator and the role related to the broadband coordinator? Things that I don't know I'm not sure of timing in 2019, were you really thinking about the broadband in the position you'd be in now? Or housing. So I think quality of life and sustainability, activities here related to working with the Hudson Tourism Board and distributing funding to 8 projects promoting tourism, the work related to the Columbia County IDA and Hudson County IDA, specific solar energy projects. And then partnering with the county and the chamber to maintain the Columbia Comeback website, which again, providing resources to businesses and communities that really are critical during that time.
In one area on that slide too is 5 years ago, we presented a 2.5 hour forum on arts, culture, and education, arts, culture, and tourism. And I think, when you look at the gig economy, you look at the number of people who have are working here in the creative economy, which I consider from the church organist to the video game developer, and in everyone in between. And the fact that there are a lot of people who are working remotely, doing graphic design and other types of creative activities throughout the county. And how do we move into strengthening our connectivity with those workers? And how do we provide, in partnership with the Chamber through Columbia Forward, some ability for them to gather together and create a network that they can be supportive of them, where, again, we get it started and back away, but where we can be the catalyst to bring them together. Because when you look at the continuing to work with the arts and cultural organizations in the county, because the tourism economy is truly based on the arts and cultural resources and the historic sites that exist here, which draw people. And I think there's been a pretty good cooperative effort there, but we don't want to lose focus on it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess certainly as I'm looking through this, from my seat in Awana, it would be nice to see arts and culture more explicitly brought into objectives and recognized as a major contributor, and therefore, something that we can work to.
Workforce and education, so just highlighted some accomplishments, the 2020 Career Jam, the 2021 Columbia Green Virtual Job Fair, and the expansion of the Junior Career Institute through the Career Connection program. Some things to think about and consider as you go through this process is, businesses, as we all know, and like I mentioned earlier, is that across all industries are struggling to attract and retain qualified employees. thinking about, the workforce pipeline. And are there industries that should be targeted or prioritized?
Again, in this pillar, I think the greatest importance is the ongoing partnerships that we have worked on and developed both with organizations in Columbia and Greene County. I think the college certainly is the bridge and Switzerland that allows us to all come together. The real bridge still being there. But, as you know, we've brought together Questar 3, the two chambers, the two economic development organizations, the college, the workforce in the New York office, and others, and acting as a resource as opposed to, in the early days of our pillar of workforce and education, we were really the initiator and the orchestrator and the implementer. And I don't know that we have A, the capacity to do that, but B, it's other people's jobs and we didn't want to be in the mix, but we do want to be supportive and the catalyst to keep those initiatives going. And as part of that, we have historically had a representative representing CEDC on the Columbia Green Workforce Development Board, the Workforce Investment Board, and Jim LePen had served in that capacity until he left our board. And Chairman Morrell is going to appoint Jessica to serve on that board at the September 9th Board of Supervisors meeting as our representative.
Very good.
Think about our accomplishments since 2019 and continued success. We want to consider the organization in our structure and functions. So here you can see from these charts that the largest source of revenue is from the county, as Mike mentioned earlier, and that's sort of a fine line and being cautious of that, but are aware of it more so. But what we want to I want to focus on is where there's opportunities to expand our income. Really thinking about, like mentioned earlier, also the grant income and also the memberships. We're really focused on trying to increase our marketing and campaign that. And then the grant income, there's opportunity there for increasing the amount that we receive from federal and state sources in assisting businesses and obtaining funding. So that I think there's, especially now coming out of the pandemic, there's a lot of ARPA money and a lot of other state funding that we can really take advantage of.
What Jessica has pointed out to us is that there have been times when we've left money on the table when we're facilitating equipment grants for various businesses, because the grant has up to 15% in most instances of the grant amount can be used to compensate CEDC for administering the grant for the county or the city. My position had been a little bit skewed in the fact, well, if we took 5%, then there was 10% more for the company to get a benefit. And you also have to show that you actually spent up to 15% to be reimbursed. So there were times when perhaps we could have taken a fee, and we should have, because we were only reimbursing our costs that we had incurred, but we gave the benefit to the developer. And if you're giving someone a $350,000 grant, you shouldn't be out of pocket at the end of the day for helping to get that. So she put in a little pressure on me to do more business.
So here, thanks, Mike. I'm going to go again really quickly through the next few slides and just highlight some of the information on each, but feel free to jump in if you think I'm skipping anything you'd like to discuss. The county population, 61,000. This has declined a little bit since 2010, about 2.4%. The median age is 48. This is the highest in the Hudson Valley and second highest in the state. The statewide median age is 39.
And the other issue here is we gained, we gained people over 55 and we lost people under 18. And so, that equaled the loss and the gain because, we were at a 2% drop. I think it was 1% in the middle, people from 18 to 55. It was only a 1% change over time. And that was negative.
In the county's median age is almost 10 years older than the state.
And these were before COVID, so we're not counting aging second homeowners.
Most of the ones that have been young with kids.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
The 2025 is gonna be so education, 90% of the residents have a minimum of a high school diploma. 33% have at least a bachelor's degree. If you look at the one on your slide, there is a typo. It's not, that's opposite. I think yours say at 50%. It's actually 1.5% growth. Just point that out, a little bit of a difference there. They're correct. It's about a 1.5% growth since 2015. You skip to the income, 1.5. Thank you. So here median household income is 68,000. The county has the largest, if you look at the sources of income on the bottom left, has the largest portion of self-employment income at 5%. The 68,000 median household income is pretty consistent with the state and national level for the income. However, when you break down those sources of income, 9.4% is the county's residents, their primary source of income is from Social Security compared to 6.1 for the state. So that's where you can kind of correlate the median age to the income, which is pretty interesting.
Bottom line there, which is driving the housing crisis, 44% earns less than $60,000.
Right. So specifically, you can look at, if you look at the distribution chart, there's actually 32% make less than $40,000, which is on the earnings distribution chart. It's the first 3 bars going up. So that's 32%. Keep that in mind for the next slide. When we look at housing on the rental side, the fair market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is about $1,000. And in order to afford this level of rent and utilities, a household must earn at least 40% a year. So basically that means in Columbia County, 32% of our residents can't afford fair market rent. So that's where the 2 pieces of information you kind of can make sense of.
And if you go online to look for a $1,000 a month apartment, you have to find them.
No. And then the chart on so basically that equates to the $40,000 a year equates to an hourly wage of about $19.46 to be able to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. The chart on the right, I'll work through the column. I just think it's interesting. A family of 5 that has has 2 incomes coming in, using it from the retail trade, somebody working in the retail trade and somebody working in healthcare. Basically, they'll have an average annual wage of about $86,000, which basically means that they can't pay any more than $2,100 in rent or a mortgage payment. So it gets to your point about even when you think about the inventory or what the housing costs are right now, you still couldn't really afford that.
And that doesn't count, $25 $1,000 for the value of the house and real property tax or insurance or snow plowing. Cut your own grass, but you can't buy the lawnmower.
Housing on the ownership, all things everyone's heard before, as our sales, the price of houses in Columbia County have increased. The median property value right now, actually this was a couple months ago, was $379,000. I think it just went up based on July data.
It's not great data because it could mean 2 $1 million houses sold in a particular month. But if you take a year, level it out, it's insignificant.
My wife just looked on Zillow. She's looking at her house. She's like, "God,
Let's sell it.
I'm like, no, we're not."
So one of the, unfortunately, the idea of the contributing to population decline, the labor shortages, they all have a significant impact on economic growth and overall health of the county and both sales. So the employee employer data, this is there are only 22 non-government employers in the county with more than 100 employees. I'm going to make sense of this and sort of like what we do here, specific to Columbia Forward. So Columbia Forward is the program, the new initiative where we support businesses with up to 25 employees with loans, grants. One thing to mention is also we have the small business webinars, which actually September 13th, this is like a little plug. September 13th is the first workshop, and it's on sales tax. So if anyone's interested, it'll be on the website in the next day or two. But so in helping those under the Columbia Forward program, 25 employees or under, there's actually, it's 1,861 businesses that have less than 25 employees. So that's the number of businesses we can support in the county through that program. It's a big pool. Unemployment data, also not much here. Generally, we are back to the rate to a rate similar to pre-pandemic unemployment based on July unemployment rates. The county's was 3.2% and the state was at 4.8%.
We were tied with Saratoga County, Yates County, and Hamilton County. And Hamilton County has 4,000 people and it has 5 lakes. So their unemployment in July was everyone was employed. But that means there's about 600 people who are in unemployment in Columbia County. It doesn't count sometimes the people who have rolled off unemployment and are either not working or are doing pickup jobs under this.
Looking at industry within the county, about 25% is government-based, the other is private sector. We've got most common industries are government and then healthcare and retail. So just to wrap up, in thinking about some of the challenges and considerations that we just went through, thinking about the impacts of the pandemic still has on businesses and how CEDC can better support their needs. We want to consider limitations of the existing infrastructure within the county, the housing crisis and gaps in the workforce pipeline. Thinking about how our plan addresses these challenges and do we have the appropriate metrics in place to measure our success. Next slide. So where this very high level chart really is right now, we're just thinking about this kind of preparing for what would be a planning session, an in-depth planning session. Mike, I think you mentioned at the last board meeting, really ultimately by the end of the year to get to 2023 strategic plan. So I don't know if there's any thoughts around what that in-depth planning discussion would look like or should be. So we can start calling
In the last round, it was all individual, right?
Yes, and that we have the notes from Mary Ellen, and I think when we did the previous plan, we had an hour-and-a-half session at college where we just focused in on discussion. At that point, we were still coming out of transition from good luck. We're just coming out of the transition from reestablishing the relationship with the county, and we held public meetings. The first one, when we first did it, was well attended. The second one was, just people who wanted to criticize us, and we're open to criticism, but I don't know at this point that we kind of raised our visibility and our activity to a point where I don't know that we need a public forum. I think the key is okay, should we be working more on, and I think Columbia Forward will help us with this, identifying shovel-ready sites. But, if you have a shovel-ready site, you're gonna need water, sewer, gas, and electric and broadband. How can you help? One thing that we don't have highlighted here is some of the climate issues that the county is looking at working on. Instead of having a 10,000 square foot business in every 5-acre field along Route 66, how do you have some critical mass in terms of development? How do you continue to support the hamlets and the villages so that you're and the businesses that exist there? And again, how do you not be a mile wide and inch deep in what you do because you're doing too much? And I think that many of the things we've been doing, we gear up, we crescendo, and we scale out because we've made whatever impact we have the capacity of making. And as we saw with the career jam, we bailed out because it was just I think we can come back to it, but it was just too much of an effort during COVID to get school districts to bring kids to a central location and get businesses to put up booths. But it's not something that we've forgotten about. We can come back to it. And I think perhaps it's where do each of you think the biggest issue is, and are there issues that you look at from an economic development or quality of life standpoint and say, why isn't CEDC doing something about this? Or looking at what we're doing and say, what the hell are you involved in this for? And so I think it's really kind of an examination of your own perspective on, with a chair who has spent a lifetime in broadband. I'm sure he feels we're doing a great job in broadband, but I think we need to, each of you to kind of, I don't know if that's through a questionnaire. I think some of the one-on-one interviews help, and we don't want to lose the value of the ones that we have, and maybe schedule ones with those of you who haven't had them. But it's really be critical, and there may be reasons that we have to transition out of something because we're already deep in it. But there's nothing that can't be modified or made mid-course corrections on.
When and how do we want to discuss all this, right?
Do you think questionnaire works, or some open to help give you a chance to formulate your ideas before we?
One thing I just noticed, of the pillars, having been through 20 years of strategic planning in the nonprofit sector, there's always a pillar that's about your own internal capacity, and governance, and other issues. And I don't know where that fits here, or maybe it is somewhere here. Just throw that.
Yeah, so once you decide what substantive matter areas you want to, how do you carry it out? It's a good idea. And we do find ourselves in a position of, Lisa, what would you say? 25% of the things we get called asked to do, we do because we can add something of value, but it's totally out of our wheelhouse. But it builds relationships and it builds capacity.
There's a questionnaire that can just go on, that can be private, confidential, where we don't see the result. We don't see who the result comes back from. If that's, we'll put that together and get that out.
Just to I do think that to me the big issue is how to economic development is a good job, a decent place to live, and the quality of life. And how do you do that across a spectrum where you have people making under $35,000 a year, and you have people buying $1.5 million houses? And I also think that it has to be focused on entrepreneurial growth and development and not on social service benefits. But how do you find that sweet spot? And I guess if you go back, Martha, over the years, and put a plug in for your course that starts in, September, the 12-week or 8-week program that Martha's run for the 41st year. I know you weren't here for all of those years, but, you take those 10 or 12 people times 40 years, you've got, almost 500 people. We probably had 500 loan clients or more. The success, the testimonials that we get from people that we don't repurpose, which we probably will in the new marketing idea. I was with Martha at an opening of the Greylock branch, and a gentleman came up and said, I couldn't be where I am without you, Martha. It's what you did for us, Martha. And, those are unsung hero stories. In many cases, confidentiality of the person doesn't want anyone to know that they couldn't get a loan at the bank, so they had to get it with us. But, and I do think we bring a regional infusion. We've had over $25 million in CFAs over the last 11 years. But we don't create jobs, so it's hard to, when you go to the metrics, it's hard to take credit. But
I'm just amazed at how much we've accomplished in the 3 years. We did this last time, thanks to staff.
well, I didn't want to tell you this, but this is my 85th meeting because I started on August 2015.
You don't look a day over 70.
Yeah, I want to get to 100, so don't think I'm going anywhere. But I also think you can see, the depth of the team, the work that Kat does to keep our books and records in the order that they are, and all the work that Lisa does and Martha with the loan program, the added benefit value that Jessica brings to the team. But we're looking for a housing coordinator, an administrative assistant, and a person to replace Laura and Krana in the loan department. So it's tough. I mean, it's not what you do, and it's also what people could make with the skill sets needed going, 30 miles out of the county. And I think one of the things we should add to that is I think it's 35% of the people that live in the county go out in the workforce, go out of the county to work. And I think we risk becoming a bedroom community to 30%. We all have, especially in the northern end of the country. It's all great though. I mean, it's invigorating. It's exciting. I think we're doing good work, but it's the best work in the most focused work. Thank you, Jeff.
So I think that concludes our meeting. Is there anyone from the public that has any comment? If hearing none, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. So, sorry. Thank you very much. Right. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.